Hello and welcome to the Disable the Label podcast. I'm your host, Kerry, and on our podcast we'll be chatting about all things disability, holidays, equipment, therapy, funding, you name it, and we'll talk about it. We want to empower and support parents of disabled children across the UK whilst they navigate their child's life. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get into it. This podcast is sponsored by the Movement Centre. They are a charity and specialist treatment centre who are dedicated to supporting children and their families living with movement disabilities. If you'd like to find out more about the Movement Centre and targeted training therapy, you can find them on our app, Disable the Label, available on Apple Store or Google Play. On this episode, we have Ali, who's come to talk about his life with cerebral palsy, what's helped him, what's changed his mindset, and what he does now. So, let's get into it. Right, hello and welcome to the podcast, Ali.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh. I'm good.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much, first off, to come on our podcast and chat about your story. Before we get into it, I will let you introduce yourself because it's much nicer.
Cool, wicked. So I'm 24 years of age. I'm actually turning 25 very soon on the 10th of July.
Exciting.
So birthday's coming up fast. I was born 3 months prematurely, so I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And I basically do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and weightlifting.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the simplest way to describe myself, really. I think so. Yeah.
So let's explain your diagnosis a little bit more, because obviously, as we both know, cerebral palsy is a vast spectrum of abilities. So yeah, can you explain a little bit more about your cerebral palsy?
So I have diplegic cerebral palsy, which means that my lower body is more severely affected than my upper body. And when I was diagnosed as a child, I was actually diagnosed as a level 4 on a GMFCS scale. But now I'm actually a level 3. Because I can get around with a frame or crutches, so I'm not as reliant on my chair. And yeah, even at this age, I'm always looking to push myself and see like where my body can go. Like I've started trying to walk with one crutch now as well. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that's my CV basically.
So were you always diagnosed with diaplegic? You were never because sometimes I've known some diaplegics that were originally diagnosed as a quadriplegic, and as they've kind of grown up and used their hands a little bit more, it's gone kind of down to a diaplegic.
I think I was always diagnosed as diaplegic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. It's just interesting. I find it all very fascinating, how they just, sometimes people can just need that little bit of extra help to learn how to use their hands, and then, their diagnosis drops, just a little bit like yours has dropped from a 4 to a 3. So
yeah. So, I mean with my one, like, sorry to drop in.
No, it's all right.
Like my right hand, so my right side is generally more affected, I'd say, by my CP. So the use in both my hands is good, but my right hand is slightly harder to use than my left. Which actually plays a big part in my jiu-jitsu game as well, because certain things that I do on the left side, I'll have to adapt on the right side and do it a bit differently. Simply because I only notice it when it comes to fine motor skills. So holding a pen or if I'm holding a TV remote or a ball, it's fine. But
so it's even smaller than that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, I
uh,
understand.
and because in jiu-jitsu you use a lot of grips, like in weird positions, like that's when I really actually noticed it when I started training.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about your pre and post diagnosis as a child. Um, if you can remember it, obviously, or what you know about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like where were you born, and then like did it change, that kind of thing? Did you move at all? Um yeah.
So I was born in Dubai, um, and up until I was about 2.5, uh, my parents moved between Dubai and Iran.
Okay.
Uh, Iran is where basically my background. So my parents are from Iran. Um, and when I was 2.5, my parents moved to the UK because somebody told my mum that like the infrastructure is a lot better for children with disabilities.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why we decided to move to the UK. In terms of like when I was born and stuff, the only thing that I know is that so doctors told both my parents that I wouldn't make it. Uh,
Right.
so I actually wasn't meant to be here. Um, and also, another thing I would say is that it was very traumatizing for my mum. Like she was very worried. Like my dad um, would always tell me she because it was unknown.
Mm.
Um, but my dad always tells me this funny story like about how like I was in the incubator and um, he said, "Oh, your mum and sisters were like crying and stuff," and my dad said to me like, "I saw you breathing like real hard, and I could tell like you were trying to basically stay alive," and I told them like, "Oh, this kid's gonna be fine."
Yeah.
When I saw you, I said, "Oh, this kid's gonna be fine. Like, don't worry at all." But yeah, I wasn't supposed to make it, but I did, and
Thank goodness you did.
here I am.
Sounds like your dad could see your fighting spirit even as a very, very small baby in an
Yeah,
incubator.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you moved to the UK, and medically obviously everything is dramatically different even then, because obviously I know you're 25 now, and it's still the case. I know some therapists that are going out to Dubai to help kind of support people with disabilities a little bit more and integrate them into society. So
yeah.
but even back then it was obviously even more different, for you guys coming over. So yeah, what was your kind of like medical journey like as a child, I suppose, with like professionals, etc., that kind of thing?
I think like don't get me wrong, my a lot of my actual physios were very, very nice, and whenever I was with them, like I do all the exercises I was supposed to do. Like I was never that child to kind of when I'm there like throw up a fuss. When I was there, like I'll do all the exercises I was supposed to do. Like and they'd always call me a superstar because I'd always listen. But I think the thing for me was like I don't know what her position was exactly, but she was above all the physios. Um, and like I'd go to see her every like 6 months for like a review or something.
Mm.
And every review, like she'd always ask me like what my goals are, and I'd say like, oh, like I wanna walk, I wanna be like independent. And she'd always tell me like, oh, you need to like rethink your goals. You're being too like unrealistic, and and stuff, and it was weird because everyone else around me was so positive, including my dad. But I think, like, as a child, I kind of latched onto that one like negative person, and like it really affected me. So behind the scenes, like I was quite lazy.
Right.
That
Kind of
that's
reduced your fight a little bit.
yeah. So that's one thing I would say. I kind of when I was in the physio's presence, I would kind of put up a farce as if I was doing everything, and then behind the scenes, my attitude was like, well, I don't really understand why I'm doing this. Like, what's the point? It's annoying, boring. so yeah,
That's a total
it
shame,
really
isn't
affected
it?
my mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, like because clearly, the physios that were working with you, like physically, I suppose, they sound really like enthusiastic and encouraging. And it's crazy how one person can have such a massive impact on somebody. Because if she had been like, okay, cool, yeah, we can work on that, but it's going to take a long time, it's going to take a lot of work, um, because I always have the thought process of how do you know for certain 100% that they're not going to walk if they have the desire to do so, because with that desire comes hard work, determination, everything. It's like saying to someone, you never run your own business, but if they have the hard work and dedication, there is a, a opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah,
And it doesn't,
exactly.
you weren't even saying I want to walk, like potentially I want to walk, no help, you just wanted to at least walk. So, and if she had explained to you, well, there's loads of different types of way to do that, like with a frame, then with a stick, and we can work towards a frame first, and then we can work toward, once you've got that, we could work towards a stick. So it's really interesting that she was like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I
shame.
reckon. Like, I reckon if she wasn't that way, I reckon, and also if I had an example like me to look up to,
Look
because
up to.
um, like when my parents were in Dubai, like my dad's, um, big up to my dad especially because in terms of the physical side of things, my dad's always been the one to like really push me to kind of be the
Yeah.
best version of me that I can be. Like, obviously, my mom supports me as well, but in terms of that side of things, it's really my dad that's always like been
Pushing you.
very,
You're the
yeah,
driving force.
like even when I was a kid, he could come across as quite harsh at times, but like now I understand uh, why he did it. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and he'd always run around like looking for different like experts, doctors, whatever to get an opinion. And there was this like I think he was a neurosurgeon or
Yeah.
something like when we were in Dubai. He this guy was like an expert in his field, and he just happened to be in town when we were there. And my dad always says to me when I went to see him, when I took you there, he said to me that this kid will be like as close to normal as possible if he works on it, if he works hard.
Mm.
Um, and that's why my dad is even now to this day, he still wants me to like improve and get better and try something new and try to push myself because he remembers like what that that doctor said. Um, but now the difference is now like my attitude's changed, so it's more like I actually want to do things as well. Like I'm
Yeah.
actually the one pushing myself as well, which is very important.
Yeah. So how did you get to that stage, like of what kind of time did it switch from being very like negative, not, well, I don't know if a negative is the word, but not as driven as you could be to be working on yourself physically?
I think like, so when I was younger as well, we used to go to Iran every summer. And I actually had one of my surgeries in Iran in 2008. And I was working with this physio at the time as well. And the stuff that I was doing was like really, really painful. Like, it was really hard. Sorry. And like, but I remember back then I was doing all the rehab and stuff, and like I was quite close to walking. Like, I can remember, I can picture it in my head, but obviously, like, I didn't really understand what was going on. I just found it like quite painful and all that. And I remember one time my mom came in to the physio, and she saw me like crying. And like, I don't blame my mom for this, because it's like kind of like some moms are like that, they're always like kind of very worried or whatever. So she saw me crying, and she said to me like, "Oh, I don't want this for my child." Or she said to her, like, my dad, and my dad told her like, "Oh, like, no way, don't worry," and all this. But my mom, like, she wasn't having any of it. So we came back to the UK, and I started going back to school again and stuff. So that was that. And then I think for me, when it switched for me was, so during secondary school, my friends actually invited me down to football. I've got a very close group of friends that I'm still tight with now, and they invited me down to football. They said, "Oh, do you want to play with us?" Because I used to, as a kid, I used to play as a goalie on my knees. So when I told them, they were like, "Oh, come play with us." And I said, "Okay." And when I first started off, I was rubbish. Like, I'd let all the goals in. Like, I was rubbish. I was always the last pick as well. And I was always the last pick. And like, but eventually, and luckily, like, I've got a very supportive group of friends. They were always there to kind of pick me up and stuff. Like, after every mistake I made, they'd always say, like, on to the next one, keep going.
Yeah.
And like, eventually I started to improve. And when I started to improve, that kind of hesitancy like became a drive, because I realized that like, if I put the work in, I can get results.
Yeah.
So it just kind of turned into a determination to really improve, and I really have to credit my mates for that, because without them, like, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And that was really like the starting point for me, in terms of, after that, so I studied sport and exercise science at undergrad.
Nice.
Which was fortunate in that my university, they were quite like understanding in terms of like physio and sports and kind of, so even like the sports massage like lecturers and stuff, they'd actually help me with my physio like once a week.
Nice. That's so cool.
Yeah, and they'd get some of the students to help out as well. Like, it was a good experience for everyone, because everyone got to learn something. So, and then I think it was like this is very long-winded, but I'll try and kind of explain as best I can. So in the winter of my first year at Kent University, which is where I went, my carer at the time had to leave and go back to Australia.
Wow.
And because my parents at the time were planning to go to Iran.
Okay.
For like Christmas and stuff. And we couldn't sort another carer out. Like the time frame was just too short.
Too tight, yeah.
Yeah, so they asked my university whether I can go to Iran with them, and my university said yes. And then I thought to myself, right, like, and I said this to my parents when we got there, and I said this to my dad especially. I said, let's go and have a conversation with the physiotherapist that I was working with before, because he's known me like since I was a child. And I'll have a very honest conversation with him. So I went to him. I said, look, I know when I was a child, I was lazy. Like, I understand. And I know that I've gotten older now, but if I really, really put the work in and push myself, do you think that I can, like, there's a 1% chance that I can dramatically improve? And he said, yeah, but it will only happen if you really, really, really put the work in, and you're gonna have to put the work in because of your age. And I said, right, that's all I needed to hear. So then I went back, spoke to my parents, and I was like, look, after I finish my first year at uni, I'm gonna take a year out and come to Iran. And the funny thing is, like, even my dad was hesitant at first. He was like, oh
wow, sure? Really?
You sure you want to do this now? Like, and all that. And my mum was like, I was like, no, it's my decision. Like, let's go. I have to do this now. It's better to do it after my first year anyway, because second year onwards gets really hard. So it's gonna be like first year doesn't really matter.
Everyone knows it really.
Second and third year like gets a bit harder. So I told them now is the best time to do this.
Yeah.
And then that summer, we went to Iran, and I stayed there for a whole year and did like intensive physiotherapy, like hydrotherapy, low-level laser therapy. It was very painful. It was very tough. Like most days I was in tears on the phone to my mates from like the pain. And it got to the point where like even my dad was like, oh, do you want us to stop? Like when I was doing one of the stretches, he was like, oh, do you want me to stop? And I said, no, let me push through the pain. And like my cousins were very supportive. My friends like were really supportive when I was out there, like even calling me like when I was in tears, like on the phone from the pain, and just being there on the phone. So everyone was like really supportive and stuff. And like in that year, I improved like dramatically. I learned how to walk with crutches for the first time.
Wow.
And stuff. And now I'm a lot. It was very slow at first, but now I'm a lot faster. Like, and there'll still be times where like I'll lose my balance and stuff, but it's quite rare now.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I want to try and go and walk outdoors with my crutches as well on like different surfaces, because at the moment like I can only do it indoors. But yeah, like I improved dramatically after that year in Iran.
Wow, it's crazy how all that kind of in a way stemmed from your friends in school. Like if they hadn't started that, like, no, come and play with us, you can totally do this, and instilled that, in a way, they reinstilled that mindset that was clearly already there because you had it, as a younger child in a way, to fight through to, come out of an incubator, etc. So they kind of reinstilled that. And I think also, because you saw improvements in at doing football, I think it's really hard to keep going with something and not get anything out of it. If you kept going with that football and you didn't improve and you didn't see any change, it also might have been a different story. Like, let's be honest, because
Yeah,
we know
of
how
course,
great it
yeah.
feels. But I think it doesn't matter how long it takes, you're going to see some, improvements. So I feel like, as you said, your friends, you have so much to thank your friends for. But the fact that they were still then there when you chose to go and do that a year in Iran and do all the physical, hard, really probably emotional as well, they were still there supporting you. Like, it sounds like you got a really, really great group of friends, which is rare to find anyway. Like,
Yeah, no,
but
I'm very grateful to my mates. Very, very grateful. I've got the best group of mates anyone could ask for, really. They've always been very supportive of like whatever I'm doing, even my journey now. A lot of them are gonna come to my competition as well, hopefully. So
that's cool.
we're gonna have a big crew out there, and I'm looking to put on a show. But yeah, there's a group of friends, like they're amazing. They really are, and without them, uh, you know, I always say to them, there's no way I'd be where I am today, if it wasn't for my mates.
Yeah. And I think it's nice, like sometimes, you obviously, your dad was very encouraging and and pushed you, and gave you some of your drive. But it shows there, like, if you have that from people that are the same age as you at the time, actually it comes across completely differently, doesn't it? Like, if your dad had said to you, go and play football, like, it would have been like, no, I'm always picked last, like, what's the point? If you already were in that mindset. But because they were like kids around the same age as you, it's totally different. Like, you were accepted, you were included, and that also gives you a boost. Whether at the start, you went and did it, whether at the start you were good or not, it doesn't matter. At that point, you just kind of felt included in something, I think,
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, and then also I think, just to add to this as well, I think part of my drive, or like increase in drive, came from the fact that I wanted to prove that I was on a level playing field with everybody else, like regardless of my circumstances. Um, and like eventually I ended up becoming, like, on my day I was one of the best players, I'd like to
Nice.
think. But I was, it was unconventional what I was doing, but it was working.
It worked.
But now I've got to the point where I can actually play football on crutches now, so I'm not even on my
Oh,
knees.
nice. Love
Uh,
that.
so yeah,
So I'm guessing you went to like a mainstream school.
yes.
Um, Outside of school or in school, did you know anybody else with a disability?
One guy, no, a couple of guys in school,
Okay.
or actually, if you're talking about CP, a couple of guys. If you're talking about a range of disabilities, quite a few.
Oh, okay,
Because
cool.
we used to have something called SEN,
Mm-hmm.
or like learning support. Because I don't really like special educational needs. I hate that term.
Yeah.
I think it's useless, really. Um, so yeah, learning support, where like all the kids with disabilities would come and like get help, or like homework club was there, or whatever. Like, we'd work in that room sometimes. So yeah, I knew quite a few kids with
Okay.
uh with disabilities. There
Because
was
sometimes
one
it can
guy.
be rare, like when you're in a mainstream school. I suppose you're not that much younger than me, but still, that like 5, 6, oh wait, 7 years, something like that. It's a big difference. So like when I
don't want to make you feel old.
and I'm like, oh, 5. No, I'm not 30 anymore. um, yeah, like I went to school obviously mainstream. I didn't have anybody in my year. Obviously there were like learning disabilities, but not anybody physically. I knew people with CP because of my dad. My dad's godson had CP, but in school we didn't have anybody. But I know that changed, and I think that kind of started to change quite quickly after that. I think it was like 2 to 3 years after me going to mainstream, going to secondary school,
Yeah.
So it's quite nice that you knew others, because what sometimes can happen is you're in a mainstream school and you don't know anybody else with your disability. Obviously, you said you'd love to have had somebody that you could look up to, which actually, when you said that, that's really key, because I've had that response from some of the kids that I worked with, and I did like a fundraising walk for them all. They all had to walk however far they could do, but they walked on the beach, and it was great. But I actually got somebody to come who had CP. He's a Paralympian, and it really inspired them, and it was nice for them to chat to him and learn that actually he used to use a walker just like they were using, and it gave them somebody to look up to and see that actually there is possibilities beyond,
of course. And like that's why when I get messages on my page from like parents who have kids with CP or people with CP themselves, like it's really like rewarding to me, because that's part of the reason why I started my page, because I wanted to become that example, like that I didn't have, and now it's got to the point where even people with CP that are walking, or like they've got hemiplegia or whatever, even they message me and they're like, man, what you're doing is ridiculous, because like I am quite strong now, like even though I may not be able to do certain things yet, and I'll always try.
Yeah,
that's one thing about me now. I'll always try, but I can do a lot, and I can surprise people with my strength and stuff.
Yeah.
So and when I get those messages, like I love it. I love it, because if I can inspire or motivate a child, and I don't really like using the word inspiration, but in this context, I think it's warranted. Like especially when it comes to those that have the same disability as me, it's something that I love. In fact, it's one of our biggest goals, to give back to the next generation.
Yeah,
and to make it really easier for them.
Yeah, I think that's really, really nice, because it can change one person's life forever to have somebody that's inspiring them. And also it's nice that you're honest. Like, you left that year, I suppose gap year in your studies to do all your physio programs, and you are honest. It was hard, it was painful, it hurt, like you did cry, and I'm not saying that that's a nice thing at all, and I obviously, being a therapist, I'm the one that does that with the kids.
Mate, I cried loads.
Yeah, and it just shows
almost every day.
It just shows that yes, it may hurt, and yes, it's going to be hard, but you would probably say now, my gosh, was it worth it? Like, that year of really hard work. And actually, in a way, like, if you look back, yes, it was hard as a child, but if you had put the effort in then, it may not have been as hard, and it may not have hurt as much as it did with as an adult. Because like, we've had a discussion before about how, like, obviously me being a therapist, other people have said, oh, once a child has gone past the age of 7 or 8, they're not, if they don't walk by that point, they're not going to walk, and actually that's incorrect. And you've proven that as an adult. But it's interesting, because nothing that is, in a way, I always have a motto in life, and obviously I don't know how it feels to have a disability, but I still push this on all of my kids. Like, nothing that is worthwhile comes easy. It's always difficult, it's always hard, you have to motivate yourself, but my gosh, that end feeling is fantastic, and that can then drive 100%. You to do even more. Like for you, you know, you didn't just do that year and go, okay, great, I can walk, see you later, I'm not doing anything else. It's given you more motivation to do other things, you know, which is fantastic. So
Yeah.
let's get on to that. So was going to ask you actually about any other major struggles, or was it just that when you did that year it was really difficult, and that was, in a way, that year was your real struggle, but it was worthwhile?
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm in my early to late teenage years, I struggled with like anxiety and depression and stuff like that. I talk about this quite openly now, because I'm in a position where I can, and I feel like you should, because I think even now, like, mental health is quite a taboo still, and this is why, like, I always encourage people to talk about these things, because you never know who it could help. But
Yeah.
I was actually quite suicidal, like during my, like, kind of mid to late teenage years, as well. But that was more. I'd say that was more due to the fact that like you got hormones racing like through you, and like girls come into the picture, and like all sorts happens, and then I kind of felt that society was looking at me differently and treating me differently, and like I kind of internalized those views as well, and that kind of caused me to go through like a downward spiral, um, and then, and funnily enough, like that's what inspired me to like start going to the gym fully, like in 2019, because eventually it got to the point where, and I always tell people this, and it kind of makes them laugh. Well, one of my biggest motivations for going to the gym was because I told myself, like, oh, I wanted to be more attractive to girls, and then I said, well, like, the only person that can change that is myself, and and if they've still got like a weird attitude towards me, that's their problem. I can only
Totally.
control the way I present myself, and like once I had that attitude switch again, like I've never looked back. And like, don't get me wrong, everyone goes through phases where like they still doubt themselves, or they like feel a bit down. I think that's normal, but for the most part, like I'm in a great place now. And like fitness has played a massive part in that. Because I've got a six pack now, so I'm happy. No.
Yeah, that's hard to get. Like, you know, I don't have a six pack, so you know. That's all that really matters. Let you know, get a six pack, tick. I'm done. Life's done. Let's go. See you later. Bye. Okay, so do you feel like sports then changed your life in a way, and that's helped you become, you know, the person that you have? Not necessarily like football or whatever, but that, you know, that specific point with football changed your life, and now like getting into a gym, working out, moving your body more is kind of like keeping you going. That's motivating you, that's encouraging you to keep, you know, trying new things. And obviously then you decided to try like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So do you feel that that's kind of the thing that's you know, inspired you to keep going now?
Yeah, 100%. I think that especially like through lockdown and stuff, I told myself that I'm gonna train 3 times a week, like without fail. I'm gonna do my weights, and that really gave me a routine. And now, even nowadays, people ask me, "Oh, like, how do you stay motivated?" Because I'm always on it. When it comes to like my workouts and stuff, and even like jujitsu training, I'm very consistent. I'm even consistent with like my diet and stuff, because I work with like a sports nutritionist. Um, and I always tell them, look, I'm not motivated all the time. like like let's be real. I'm not motivated all the time, but I've made myself accountable, and I've made it a habit, so that I don't rely on motivation, because motivation, it's not always going to be there. Motivation comes through you create motivation. Motivation comes through action. If you act and improve and something changes, then motivation comes as a result of that, because you'll be motivated to carry on as a result of what you see. But if you don't do anything, like, motivation isn't going to appear out of thin air.
It's not just gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm motivation. Nice to see you. Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, sorry, I totally agree. Like, motivation isn't just going to appear, and you're not always going to have it, and there's going to be days that you don't feel motivated, and that's completely okay. And actually, you just have to listen to yourself and know that you still have that motivation deep down, because you've seen the results and you're doing the right thing and you've got yourself into a routine. Like, that's a dramatic thing. So, do you have any advice for parents?
Advice for parents. I would just say the biggest piece of advice that I can give is, like, learn to work with your child's disability, like, figure out what they can do, and also figure out what they like to do, and then get them to improve through that, basically. Because one thing I would say with physio is I found it quite boring, like, and to me it didn't really have a purpose when I was a child, and even now, like, because even as a child, it's like, okay, I'm gonna walk, great. Well, I mean, like, what's that gonna be for? Like,
Yeah.
but the thing is, if you have a purpose, so if you know your why, basically, this is what I always say to people: if you know your why, your how is easy. So
Yeah.
give your child a purpose, find something that they like, and just encourage them, and like, always be behind, like, whatever they're doing. If they don't necessarily do well, or it doesn't go right, then keep encouraging them, tell them to, get back up, or try something different, try something new, and eventually, if you do that, they'll stumble across something that works for them,
That they love.
and that they love, and that's when you'll start to really, like, improve and kind of see the fruits of their labor, basically.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, would that be then similar to your advice for children themselves?
Yeah, 100%. Just find something that you like. That's the most important thing, because if you like something, you're gonna be motivated, and even if you like something, and see, here's the thing: if you find something that you like, and a physiotherapist latches onto that, and, for example, says, right, okay, we're doing physio so you can, I don't know, improve at jujitsu, or, like, be able to do this move that you want to do, for example. Like, so if they latch onto that purpose, the child is then more likely to want to do the physio, because they know that it's working towards something that they like. So it's about really creating that purpose, and
trying new things, because you may not know what you like, I suppose. Yeah.
And
so
yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was gonna say, like, that's the same with me in jiu-jitsu. Like, I love jiu-jitsu. Like, the reason why I picked it up was because I actually found a few people with CP that do the sport as well, and I know that they've competed and, like, medaled and stuff. So like, I've always wanted to compete in a competitive sport as a child, and as soon as I found out that there'd be an opportunity for me to compete, I was like, let's go.
Yeah, I'm on it.
So
nice.
yeah.
Okay, so your last few, I suppose, questions. I probably should have asked this before, what your advice was for parents, but your passions now are jiu-jitsu. You've kind of got into that. You're going to be doing your first competition. Are you in your competition? Are you against others with CP or, able-bodied, etc.?
So I'm actually hoping eventually to take part in both types of competitions. So I want to be able to take on able-bodied people and people with disabilities. I'm hoping to do both. I've got massive ambitions in the sport. I actually want to become like one of the first people with cerebral palsy to have a black belt. But yeah, I hope to take part in both types of competitions. This one is called the Reorg Open. Reorg is a charity for like veterans and stuff. Like,
okay.
And this competition is the first of its type held in the UK. And it's a para jiu-jitsu competition. And there is able-bodied competition as well. So everyone's going to be competing.
Nice.
And I'm competing in the para division. So this one's a para jiu-jitsu competition.
Cool. Well, good luck with that. Sounds like amazing. I hope you smash it and win. Obviously, I'm rooting for you.
I'm going for the win. I'm training really hard. I train 6 times a week. I've been on a diet for about a year now, just simply because I always wanted to stay in shape for this exact moment when it came. And I didn't even know that I was going to be competing until like April. But yeah, just the fact that I knew I was going to be competing at some point, I was like, I'm gonna try and stay
focused,
best shape as I can. Yeah. So
yeah. How can people follow your journey, find you, social media, etc.?
So my people can find me on Instagram. Like that's the only platform I really like use actively at the moment. And my Instagram handle is and this may sound a bit intimidating, but I don't bite, I promise, unless I meet you on the mats, of course. That's the only time. So my Instagram handle is at DeathGrip BJJ.
Nice. I will link that in the description of the podcast as well, so people can just click on it. But thank you so much for coming on and chatting about your story and hopefully inspiring others. Like, follow along Ali's journey because he's definitely inspiring. And I think it is really, really key to have like inspirational people around the kids, and help them see that you can do anything you put your mind to. Ali is definitely proof of that. I would 100% say. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
That means an awful lot, and I'm always happy to do these things and like help out. So my pleasure. And yeah, any kids that want to learn jiu-jitsu with CP, like I'd be more than happy to help out as well.
Nice, so, love that. Yeah.
In fact, that's another goal of mine, is to open like an academy for people with disabilities.
That's really cool.
Because I really want to encourage more people to take up the sport and make the sport more inclusive. So yeah, I'm always happy to do these things and like push my story out there. So thanks for having me on.
Of course, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in to the Disable the Label podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment to let us know what you thought of this episode. More episodes will be coming soon, so make sure you tune in. Don't forget you can download our app for free via the App Store. That's Google Play or Apple App Store. Just search Disable the Label and you'll find us.